What's up, football world? I am Bucky Brooks, and this is the Bucky Brooks Show. And I am excited to talk all things trade, given the fact that today, Tuesday, November 4th, is the trade deadline, 4 o'clock Eastern. All trades must be finalized. So it's a really exciting day in the National Football League. And we've already seen a bunch of teams utilize the trade deadline to fortify rosters that they believe are championship caliber, they believe are playoff contender worthy, or they believe it's time to have a fire sale because their season is at a loss and it's time to swap players for picks so they can start the rebuilding effort. What I would tell you in my experience in the National Football League, first as a player, then as a scout, everything that you're doing at this time of year is to set yourself up to be able to make a run down the stretch, meaning you may acquire a veteran, you may acquire a young player, someone at a critical position to put your team in a position to separate from the competition. When I was a player in Green Bay, Hall of Fame executive Ron Wolf always believed in bringing a veteran to help the team down the stretch. He believed that experience, that expertise could come in handy. And even though it might not be a player that is a starter, having that person in the bullpen can help if you have young players that are overwhelmed by the moment, the playoff pressure, and those things. As I look around the league, there's certainly some teams that are putting themselves in a position to make a playoff run because they want to add a piece or two down the stretch to be able to get it done. And when I'm thinking about a team that is well positioned to make a run, I got to start with the Philadelphia Eagles and the trade that they made earlier this week in landing Jaelan Phillips from the Miami Dolphins to add to what is a rebuilt stable of pass rushers. If you know anything about the Philadelphia Eagles, you know that part of their formula, their blueprint, is to always dominate the trenches. On offense, they invest in the offensive line. On defense, they invest in pass rushers. And they believe if they can control the line of scrimmage, it gives them the best opportunity to win games. This year was interesting is they felt like, obviously, they didn't have a marquee pass rusher that could get it done. Injuries and lack of performance, they just weren't getting enough production out of their defensive ends. So in the last couple of weeks, we saw one, Brandon Graham was lured out of retirement. He comes and joins the team to give him that veteran pass rusher, someone that can get after the quarterback, particularly in key moments. He comes over. But in getting Jaelan Phillips, what they're doing is they're throwing another high pedigreed guy into the mix, and it gives them the depth and the talent that they want so they can roll waves of pass rushers at the opponent. When I think about Jaelan Phillips is a former first-round pick, 18 overall in the 2021 draft. He's a guy who really hit the ground running, 8.5 sacks right at the gate, had another 7 sacks after that. Then he suffered a couple of injuries, Achilles injury, then came back and suffered an ACL tear that prematurely ended 2 seasons. Even though his production this year is not necessarily what you would expect, 3 sacks in 9 games, he does have 26 career sacks in his career. He is an athletic freak who has great hands and a game that's pretty polished as a pass rusher. In Philly, he goes into a situation where he's not going to be asked to do everything as a pass rusher. He's going to be part of a rotation that overwhelms people with the collective talent and the collective energy of a group. This is how Vic Fangio has always done it. He's always had a host of guys that would come after the quarterback, and in time, the extra bodies, they wear opponents down. It allows you to keep your pass rushers fresh. And when your offense is playing like the Eagles' offense is beginning to play, you want a defense that can close out games when you have a lead. Jaelan Phillips gives them that opportunity, particularly as he plays alongside Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, some of the other guys that they have in the mix. This is a really good deal for the Eagles, and it brings them one step closer to the title. Now, a team that's not close to title contention but made a move to try and help their defense, the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys just made a trade to acquire Logan Wilson from the Cincinnati Bengals. In acquiring Wilson, they gave up a third-round pick in 2026, but they get someone who still has 2 years remaining on a 4-year, $36 million deal that they signed in 23. They have 2 years left on that, so it ensures that they have a starting linebacker for the next 2 seasons. You're getting someone who has great intangibles. He was a team captain in Cincinnati for the past few years. He's a guy who is super productive as a run defender, 100 plus tackles in each of the last 4 seasons. And he's a difference maker. I remember watching him coming out of college at Wyoming. He was terrific when it came to his instincts, awareness. He was a see ball, get ball defender. And in Matt Eberflus's scheme, you need linebackers that can hold their own in coverage while also play effectively as a downhill smasher. He can do all of those things. And for the Cowboys, where you are right now, you're at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to defense. You're having a tough time getting stops. You're not able to consistently get pressure and penetration from your front line. You're not getting the takeaways that you want by being a vision and break team. Well, in Logan Wilson, you're getting someone who excels at taking the ball away, is a nice, impactful sideline-to-sideline player, and a high IQ player that can set the front and get everyone lined up. People will talk about Logan Wilson, and they'll talk about, well, I don't understand. They made this trade to get rid of Micah Parsons. They brought things back, but we were clearly weaker than we were before with Micah. And what I would tell you is the Cowboys were taking the long play on this. They, for whatever reason, didn't believe that Micah Parsons was going to be a great fit in the locker room long term. So they moved on from a multiple-time all-pro player, someone who is disruptive, to kind of do it with a collective approach, meaning they're going to expend balanced money, meaning you won't necessarily have the spikes, the ebbs and flows in terms of who's making what, but they're just going to have a balanced overall roster, and they hope that their overall talent and can get them over the top. I'll say this because people have really beat up Matt Eberflus for the lack of creativity with the defense, but when you've seen this defense operate and work, there isn't a lot of creativity. You see it, you understand what it is, you know what you're facing, but they do it better than you can execute it, which is why those teams that employed the Tampa 2 system, the Rob Marinelli, the Tony Dungy's, and others, that's why they've had a lot of success. The Cowboys are trying to get to that, but they don't have all the pieces of the puzzle in place. When they get a couple pass rushers to go around a playmaker and Logan Wilson in the middle, then you'll start to see this team not only climb up the ranks, but then they'll start to get the kind of takeaways that you talk about as a team with championship aspirations. Logan Wilson doesn't put them over the top, but he certainly brings them a step closer to playoff contention because of the way that he controls the middle of the field. Speaking about controlling the middle of the field, I got to tell you, man, Jaguars making moves, and they're going to continue to make moves because it's early. Sitting here looking, is just a little past like noon on the East Coast, and you have General Manager James Gladstone from the Jaguars making moves to upgrade a position of need for the Jaguars. The Jaguars acquire Jakobi Meyers in a trade from the Las Vegas Raiders. Interestingly, they just played on Sunday, but they traded away some mid to late round picks to bring over a veteran who is in the last of a 3-year, $33 million deal, but someone who has been really, really productive for the Raiders. This is a guy who, and for his career, he has almost 5,000 receiving yards. He has 20 touchdowns. He's coming off 1,000-yard season last year. But most importantly, when you look at his numbers throughout his career, he has a 1.8% drop rate. You think about the number of balls that head in his direction, the way that he is running across the middle of the field and those things, you're talking about on less than 2% of the time this dude drops a pass. So when we talk about sure-handed, understanding how to catch, it's natural, it's easy. That's what we're talking about. You can do a lot of things in terms of improving your skills, but it's hard to find someone who is a steady, reliable, consistent pass catcher and not want him on the field in some way, shape, or form. This is a direct move that is a counter reaction to the Jaguars and having 19 drops. 19 drops, lead the league in drops. And it's not only Brian Thomas Jr., who entering last game, he had 8 drops, but Parker Washington has been in this. De'Ami Brown has dropped some balls. Overall, the pass catchers have just failed to hold onto the ball. And when you can't catch the ball on the perimeter, it sets you back on offense because the early down passes that you're throwing, they're incomplete. So now it's 2nd and 10. You run it, now it's a 3rd and long. That's not necessarily what you want as a play caller. And the other part of it is you're not able to impact the run game with a a complementary play action attack because you can't count on your guys to catch the ball. To me, this move not only eliminates some of that because you have a sure-handed receiver on the perimeter, but it also gives you a guy with some craftiness to work into the rotation to do some things. And I love Parker Washington. I love what he's done with these extra opportunities because to me, he showed that he could carry this offense from the slot. But in adding another piece to the puzzle, particularly because Travis Hunter is going to be out for a while, De'Ami Brown, Brian Thomas, no one knows how long they're going to be out. You got to have enough to give yourself a fighting chance. And they certainly have enough to be able to do it because Jakobi Meyers gives them the route runner, the playmaker, the guy that can catch it consistently over the middle of the field, and someone that can line up anywhere all over the field because of his high IQ. Former college quarterback turned pass catcher has exceeded expectations as an undrafted free agent. Now he get a chance to exceed the expectations in Jacksonville as a quasi number one down in Duval. Now, speaking of Duval, let's pivot and let's talk about the great things that are happening down in Jacksonville as it relates to this team rounding into form as a playoff contender. When I look at the record halfway through, man, they're kind of right where they need to be, 5-3. We could talk about how they got mollywopped in 2 games against the Rams and Seahawks, respectively. But those things happen periodically throughout the league. What I like about how the Jaguars responded is, one, the team meeting. Liam Cohen has complete command of the team meeting. He's done a really good job of pouring into the team to get them to perk up, to energize, to kind of believe in the overall message, vision, and plan. The other thing that I can tell you is this is a team that under Liam Cohen, like, man, they have really leaned into their identity as a physical football team, a team that wants to be a run-heavy football team, and a team that is very comfortable winning gritty, not pretty, when it comes to their playing style. The game against the Raiders certainly adhered to that statement in terms of it being a gritty win, not a pretty win. It was gritty because, man, they're playing with a bunch of backups. I mean, let's just be honest. A bunch of backups are on the field and in the game in key moments. I mean, you have Tim Jones playing. You have Austin Trammell. You do have Parker Washington playing. You can't find out the tight end situation. Etienne is going in and out. So you don't really have the people that you're comfortable with from the spring. But the standard is the standard, and you got to go out and perform and continue to find a way to get it done. And what I'm most proud of is the way that these guys found various ways to get it done, whether it's Cam Little bouncing back from a series of bad kicks to nail a bomb that shattered the NFL record, or it's just the subtle plays that were made to extend drives and to make things happen, whether it's Travis Etienne breaking tackles, it's Parker Washington making a critical catch on 3rd down, whether it's Quint Allen picking up in pass protection. The Jaguars are doing just a little, just enough to be able to get into the tournament and maybe do damage. Now, defensively, you're talking about what the Jags are doing and what they had to do without a host of stars. You think about it, man. Early in the game, Trayvon Walker is ejected. Jordan Lewis goes down with a shoulder. Eric Murray is on IR. Devin Lloyd can't play. He's in street clothes. And a defense that had been prolific, had a terrific turnover prowess, was doing great on the trip. Like, everything was rolling, but they don't have their main guys. And this is where the culture comes in, because in sitting on the sideline and watching this, never at any point did Liam make excuses for himself in terms of who don't we have, what do we have, put the ball out, let it go. It was refreshing to see a coach take that and not shrink from the light of injuries, because we're at a time where everybody blames injuries for their demise, but the league is one that's full of injuries. And the fact that the Jags overcame so many losses on offense and defense on the road against a scrappy Raiders team, to me, it is everything that you look for in the Jags rebuilding effort. Now, when we specifically get to the game, I think what was really impressive is we'll work backwards. In overtime, when the Jags needed to play, when they needed to score, man, they ran the football. They ran it at will. They ran it right down their throat, and they did not blink or apologize for their approach. The approach was sensible because in running the ball, the clock is still running, and because you have to give another possession, you're forcing the opponent into 2-minute mode because you pretty much dominated the entire game. And if you dominate the entire game, you force them to play on your terms, you take away some of the big plays and you make them play mano a mano in this fist in a phone booth game, yeah, everything bodes well for you finding a way to come back and get a dub. Now, the reason we talk about the ground and pound attack is because Liam has talked about it nonstop since coming over, how they need to run the ball, how they got to control the ball with the running game, how they need that to set up the big play action passes to Trevor to just stabilize the situation. And I'm telling you, man, it's so important. He has great perspective on what he needs and what the team needs to be able to get it done. The final piece to that is, will they find the right thing to make it work? Meaning the right combination of players who believe in the same stuff. The chemistry and the connectivity is there, but they are certified blue chip players. We have a lot of good right now. I don't know how many great players we have, but you can go a long way with a bunch of good, but there's something about taking a break and being able to just lock in and go. And I think when you look at the Jags and talking about being able to lock in and go and how they're doing it, I think you can't say enough about the job that Anthony Campanile is doing when it comes to the defense. And looking at the defense, I understand that this is a vision break team. I understand they want to be a zone team. They have to be a zone team, given some of the physical deficiencies. And that showed up on the game on Sunday. They just didn't have enough bodies to match up and line up and play man-to-man. They were getting torched every time they would go man-to-man. Geno Smith was very comfortable coming at them, and they didn't have an answer. Zoning things up, as you talk about being able to maybe add a veteran, that would allow them to not play kind of like the vanilla ice cream version of some of these coverages, and they can get into the bag and do some tweaks and adjustments to make it a little more difficult for the quarterback to decipher their intentions. Additionally, it allows you to play more stuff if you have guys who have a tremendous amount of experience in those things. And then finally, with the Jaguars trying to remake a playoff push after sitting out the last couple of years, you kind of need some of those veterans who went through the wars to be able to set the table for these young guys so they understand how to eat when they have their opportunity. That is what the Jags have done. They played young guys. They put those guys on the field, and those guys have responded in a great way. Rayoon Lane being able to do it. Antonio Johnson coming off the bench, being able to get in there. I saw Mason Smith and some other guys kind of rolling through. They've been able to do that offensively. Cole Van Landen being able to get in. Parker Washington kind of settling in as the number one receiver when no one really saw him as the number one coming into the game. All of those things bode well. And if you're going to have these contributions from three sides, offense, defense, special teams, with young guys littered throughout the roster, you got to have a clear vision for how you want to play. You got to have a clear identity that people understand, and it becomes synonymous with who you are and what you are, and whatever you speak, they think about that. When I look at this Jags team, they're turning the corner and finally being able to do that. Other thing that showed up when we talked about that part of it, Cam Little, post-game, having a conversation with him, and he just talked about, like, this is a unique situation where everyone on the team has each other's back, and how in moments when he has missed kicks and those things, guys have come up and told him, hey, man, we got you, we'll make it right. And how he felt the need to pay that back when he had his opportunity, not just to his team, but to the players, the support staff, and all that, to go through there and to express his gratitude to be able to have all those guys around to continue to believe in him when he was going through some struggles. To me, that speaks to the culture that is being created, that, hey, man, we can tolerate some mistakes and those things, but if you're wired the right way, we don't give up on our own. And with Cam Little, they certainly didn't give up on him, and he rewarded them with a 68-yard kick, multiple kicks to keep his team in the game, change the energy in the stadium. And the Jags don't win if Cam Little doesn't make that kick, because that kick not only shattered the record, but, man, it broke the glass ceiling that was hanging over top of that end zone where the Jags couldn't score. They pierce it. They're able to get it. He does it and really set the team up for success. And I'm going to say this. It's a game that everyone say, yeah, the guy was wide open on the 2-point play. If Devon Hamilton doesn't knock it down, they find a way to win. Doesn't matter. They won, and that win was critical, particularly for a team that on FanDuel Sportsbook has the odds of -120 reaching the playoffs and the odds of +240 of winning the NFC South. They needed some of those plays, and they needed to make it happen. Now, where did the Jags go from here? We talked about the trade deadline earlier, how Jakobi Meyers would jump in. I expect this to kind of look like the wide receiver core looked when it was Christian Kirk and Marvin Jones and Zay Jones, where you had interchangeable parts and guys that could fill any role and have success. I now think they kind of have that on the perimeter with Jakobi Meyers coming in, with Brian Thomas Jr. and Parker Washington slated to play heavy, while Travis Hunter is coming back from an injury. Offensively, the other part of it is Travis Etienne continue to be the hammer. I think that's going to be the case, even though Bashar Tootin is coming with a bullet to be a guy that can snatch some of those carries in the red zone. Regardless, it is a collective mission, wide receivers, runners, to be able to get it done. And I think they're going to have another opportunity to get it done this week against the Houston Texans. That's it for the day. We talked a little bit about the trade deadline. We talked about the Jaguars. And the next time that we show up, I'm talking to Seth Payne on Wednesday. We have a conversation, Jags, Texans, what that looks like. And then at the end of the week, we're going to talk about some of these players that are beginning to pop, not just in the pros, but some of the college guys that we need to talk about as we look ahead to the 2026 draft and some of the players that are going to impact the game mightily. Once again, we talk about FanDuel Sportsbook. We talk about the odds. Look, I told you, I love to lay it down a little bit. I'm going to say the Jags plus 240 to win the AFC South. I'm with that. I'm going on that. I think that's a good one. Can't play my own, but I would say not a bad play if you're someone that's interested and having a little fun on FanDuel Sportsbook. But until next time, I am Bucky Brooks. This is the Bucky Brooks Show. We're out.